Good morning on this Veterans Day, and we want to begin the show today by saying thank you to all of our veterans. We couldn't do what we do if you hadn't have done what you did. So it is with great honor and privilege for me to say thank you to those that have served and those that are serving. We appreciate you. I appreciate you. And I did not have the pleasure of serving, but my dad did, as he served in Vietnam, and he did a tour of duty overseas as well. Today being Veterans Day, there are different things going on. In fact, if you are local, I encourage you between 8 and 9, between now and 9 o'clock, Pointer Elementary. Our own Alexis Warren is the choral director there and is having a drive-through brunch in honor of all veterans. So I would encourage you, if you can get out and if you have a moment, go over to Pointer Elementary and enjoy the drive-through brunch and the honoring of you and the thanking of you, veterans. And we do appreciate you. Encourage you to stop by there and go by there this morning. So. Well, I want to talk about this morning what happens if you get canceled by our culture. Now, I know those are some hot terms right now, the cancel culture. But you know what? It's very reminiscent as we're reading through Daniel right now, Daniel 3 specifically. It's very interesting. As I was reading through that, it made me think about what do we do? How should we respond if we feel like we've been canceled by our culture? Now, before you and I both get riled up and we begin to say, oh my goodness, this culture, got to remember what a culture means. Culture is the summation of the people and the beliefs and the arts and the industries and everything involved. So if you want to talk poorly about the culture, big C culture at large in America today, you have to realize that we all are a part of that. Oh, I'm not a part of that culture. I don't believe in all. Hey, look, the silence of Christianity is deafening today. The silence of Christianity the last 40 years has been deafening. And the reason why our country is where it is because of a couple of things. First of all, we raised up people who said they believed in Christ, but their life never backed it up. The church failed in discipleship and never discipled people. We dipped them and dropped them. And we did not do our due diligence as the Big C church in America. We didn't do it. We came back from World War II. We had an abundance and a prosperity, and we lived it up. And we raised kids who we wanted them to think for themselves, and we wanted them to rise up for themselves, and we opened them up to a world of possibilities. And now the world of possibilities is getting back to us now. And we created this. Let's not complain about the creation we made any more than Frankenstein needed to complain about the monster he made. We need to realize we created this. We pieced it together. We allowed it to happen. We allowed this progression of thought and theology to occur right under our noses and on our watch. So, what happens when the created smash the creator? Well, I think the Lord might have some things to say too about that. But what do we do? What happens if you as a Christian, as a follower of Christ, that you're trying to honestly and legitimately live for Jesus, follow his teachings, to love God and to love our neighbor? Then what do we do? How do we handle that? What are we supposed to be doing? How do we respond if we are being canceled by our culture? And trust me, we are. We're not trusted anymore. The Judeo-Christian fabric system in our country is being ripped apart, and that's our own making. We've allowed this to happen. So What do we do? How do we respond if we are being cast aside, or if we are being outright challenged by the world around us, by our own community, by our own neighbors? What happens if we're being canceled, shut out, thrown away, or just outright challenged? How do we respond to this? What do we do? Well, thankfully, there's a story in the scriptures that is eerily similar to what is happening right now. See it over in Daniel chapter 3. It's a very, very, very famous story. And this is the story of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. This is the moment in time when Nebuchadnezzar built a statue 90 feet high and 9 feet wide, placed it out on the plain of Dura, and expected everybody to bow down and worship this statue. In essence, the cultural leader of the day, shall I say the social media influencer, wanted us to bow down to the creation that he had, wanted the people to worship this statue, which in essence would be worshiping him because of his narcissistic tendencies, his bipolar mood shifting moments by moment, wanted them to worship him. And so some in that moment took it upon themselves to make the king aware, hey, by the way, some of these people that you have put into power don't agree with us. They don't agree with you. They're not following what you say. You need to go check on them. Don't you just love tattletales? I mean, it's just, wow, really? But they do. And so Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego are brought in before the king, and he is upset. He's frustrated. And he says, look, hey, I'm going to give you one more chance. Here's your opportunity. If you will bow down at the signal, if you'll bow down, I'm looking down because I'm looking up Daniel 3. I want to quote a verse here in a minute. I'm going to give you one more shot. If you'll bow down at the appointed time, hey, all is well and good. But if you don't, we're going to throw you in the fiery furnace because that's the rule. It's the rules. We're going to cancel you if you don't do what we tell you to do. We're going to throw you away if you don't follow what we want you to do. If you're not willing to go to the distance that we are going as a society, then we're just going to cancel you by killing you. In essence, is what Nebuchadnezzar was telling these three. And so, and then he puts this question at the end that I find interesting, and their response intriguing. Here's the deal. And who's the God who's going to save you then? I mean, that's in essence what he says. Let me quote it exactly. And who is the God who can rescue you from my power? Now, if we looked at King Nebuchadnezzar as a type of people that are standing in opposition to the things and ways of God, if he was typified in that way and said, okay, if Nebuchadnezzar, I mean, a real human being, he's a real king, a real leader, I have no doubt in my mind. But if I'm reading this today and I'm looking at that, I'm going, wow. In this moment, it feels like this is a representation of everything that's standing against Christianity in our world today. But do not be myopic. Let's not become narcissistic also and say, hey, it's all about me. It's all about me. We're the first ones to ever deal with this. You're not. We're not. We are not the first generation to deal with this, and we won't be the last, except unless Jesus comes back. But we're not the first generation to deal with it. And I don't think that we need to be thinking we are. We think we have it bad. We don't have it near as bad as Indonesian Christians. We don't have it near as bad as Egyptian Christians. We don't have it near as bad as any Christian in an Arab-dominated world. We don't have it as bad as they do. We don't have it as bad as the Christians in the underground church in China. We don't have it as bad. We certainly don't have it as bad as the Christians that were being burned at the stake in Roman times under Nero is he would burn half the city and blame it on the Christians, and then he would crucify them and light them on fire. We don't have it that bad. We don't have it this bad. We are not yet being called up like these three guys saying, okay, look, you either play by my rules or I'm going to kill you. And yet I see some similarities, don't you? I see some similarities. I see some ways in thinking here because Nebuchadnezzar and much of our society today, much of our generations today, we see this. We see this going on, this same style. Either agree with me or I'm going to cancel you. And if you don't accept everything I say, I'm going to cancel you out. If you don't agree with me, I'm going to cancel you out. If you don't tolerate me, I'm going to cancel you out. And I find that so intriguing because the very cry for tolerance is done in an intolerant way. Saying you agree with me or you're out. Well, wait a minute. You want me to tolerate you, but you won't tolerate me. Where's the community in that? There is no community in that. There's a cancel culture in that. If we're going to make strides in community at large, and this goes for the left, for the right, for the moral, for the immoral, whatever, for the amoral, it doesn't matter. If we're going to make strides of unity in our community, in our county, in our state, in our country, if we're going to have unity, it can't just be one side crying for it. We're both going to have to desire it. We're both going to have to work at it. We're both going to have to learn how can we work side by side together, even if we don't always agree with one another. And that, I believe, we have as Christians the higher responsibility from God, mandated from God to us, that we often forget. We have the higher responsibility. We have to set the tone. We have to set the pace. We have to model what it is that we need to do. And you say, whoa, wait a minute. No, how come we always have to give in? Look, we can try to win this world for Christ, or we don't. And all I'm saying is Scripture tells us, Paul says, I do everything I can. I look for ways. I do everything I can to build a bridge of relationship in order to have an opportunity to share the gospel. Now, it doesn't mean I believe everything that society throws at me. It doesn't mean I have to believe everything society throws at me. We do not have to accept everything as right and true. But I do have to accept humanity as an opportunity for God's love to be received. I have to do that. As a follower of Christ, we are mandated to love our neighbor. It doesn't say I have to agree with my neighbor, but I have to love my neighbor. Big difference. And I can't love my neighbor and disrespect them at the same time. I can't love my neighbor and, disrespect. I can't yell at them. I can't hate them. I can't talk bad about them. I can't run them down on social media. I can't sit here and talk in prayer meeting and talk about how horrible and bad these people are. I can't do it and love my neighbor. We can't do that and love our neighbor. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego had a very interesting response, in my opinion. Verse 16 says, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego replied to the king, Nebuchadnezzar, we don't need to give you an answer to this question. Now, they were direct. They were very direct. And I think that we can be direct, but we need to also be respectful. They understood King Nebuchadnezzar. They understood his position. They understood and respected his position, and they didn't disrespect him. They didn't say, hey, you horrible individual that you're demanding this pagan way of us. No, they didn't start off hateful. I was told, and it's a Southernism, and I was told it when I was growing up, you can win more flies with honey than you can with vinegar. Think about that. Maybe we should be trying that. Maybe we should be trying that. Stop being so sour and be a little more sweet. Love people into a better way of living instead of trying to pin them to the ground and demand that they do so through beating them up. That's just being a bully. Well, we're being bullied in this country because the moral fabric has been ripped apart, and the things that we fought and died for are no, you fought and died for freedom, and now we're facing the repercussions of that freedom. We're facing the repercussions of the fact that the church hasn't done her job for 50 years. We dropped off our kids at church and said, you fix them. When the reality is, parents, you were supposed to do that. Hey, church, I need you to fix my kid. Hey, church, I need you to disciple my child. Now I'm going to go off and have my drinking buddy time, but you raise my kids for me. And we wonder why they don't love Jesus today. Look, it's our own making. We can be direct, but not be disrespectful. And we have to learn how to do that. But look what they said. Nebuchadnezzar, we don't need to give you an answer to this question. You don't have to give an answer to every challenge that comes at you. Sometimes less is more. Sometimes no response is better than the response you might give. We've got to be aware of this. Secondly, look at this. If the God we serve is, now don't get unraveled here. They're not questioning if God exists. Now, see, we take that and we look at it negatively. It's kind of like when, when the devil would come to Jesus and say, well, if you're the Son of God, that word if can also be translated since. Well, since you're the Son of God. And look at also what they're doing here. It's not that they don't believe that he exists. They're just trying to work a way of communication with somebody who doesn't seem to believe. They're saying, look, okay, God exists, and we believe that. You may not believe that, but if God exists, look, he can rescue us from the furnace. He can rescue us from the furnace, and he can rescue us from the power of you also. Now, I don't think they're being disrespectful. I think they're being firm. Now, there's a fine line here, right? I think they're just being firm. Look, we believe that God exists, and he can rescue us if he wants to. You can throw us in the fire, and he can rescue us if he wants to. He can rescue us from these chains. He can rescue us from your power. He can do whatever he wants to. But even if he doesn't, oh, I love this. Even if he doesn't rescue us, we want you as king to know that we're not going to serve your gods or worship the gold statue you set up. Look, we're not going to do it. We will gladly die in the furnace if we have to, but we're not going to serve your gods. They stood firm. And see, this is something that we haven't done much of over the years. We have stood against, but we haven't stood firm. Go chew on that a minute. We've stood against a whole lot of things, but we haven't stood firm in a lot of things either. And we need to learn how to be respectful, to be firm, all at the same time. Look, we believe that God exists and he can rescue us, but even if he doesn't, I'm still going to walk by faith. I'm still going to walk by faith. You can cancel me, you can kill me, you can cut me out, you can cut me out, you can cut me off, you can disregard me, disrespect me, but I'm still going to love you because that's what God calls me to do. I'm going to love you. I'm going to love my neighbor because that's what I'm supposed to be doing. We have to learn how to stand up for ourselves. We need to learn how to stand firm, but at the same time, love our neighbor. This is the call. This is the way of Christ. So as we go about our day and we go about our week and we're all up in arms about this election and, oh my goodness, I'm going to lose my mind if my candidate doesn't get in the office and, oh my goodness, no, look, I really don't care who gets in office anymore. I don't care because in the long run, it's not really going to matter. Oh, but you're so naive. You don't seem to understand. I understand. I just understand that there are bigger fish to fry than the one in this election. I think that we need to be mindful that in the process of our speaking out and our speaking up, that we still have to love our neighbor. Stand firm. Our culture is going to, at large, the culture we've created, the monster that we have in front of us that is of our own making and creation, it's biting the hand that feeds it. I understand that. I get that. It's kind of like raising a teenager. You know, they're going to come through a time period that, you know, you don't know anything. You don't know anything at all. You're ignorant. You're naive. You don't seem to understand the ways and means of life like I do at 17 and 18. Oh, my goodness. That's okay. It's okay. They'll come around. But even if they don't, our God still stands. We serve God, not a president. We serve God, not our culture. But we must love our neighbor as ourselves. Stand strong, stand firm, stand for something. Do it with respect and share Christ in the process. You guys have a great day.